Hi guys, my name is Ayman Umal and I'm your reporter number 17, and I'm gonna be talking about Presidential Decree 1096, also known as National Building Code of the Philippines, under chapters 1 to 5. So, why is this decree created? It is created due to the country's accelerating economic and physical development, coupled with urbanization and population growth, makes imperative the formulation and adoption of a uniform building code which shall embody up-to-date and modern technical knowledge on building design, construction, use, occupancy, and maintenance. So, next is Chapter 1, which is General Provisions. Under Chapter 1 is Section 101, which is the title. This decree shall be known as the National Building Code of the Philippines and shall hereinafter be referred to as the Code. Next is Section 102, Declaration of Policy. It is hereby declared to be the policy of the state to safeguard life, health, property, and public welfare, consistent with the principle of sound environmental management and control, and to this end make it the purpose of this code to provide for all buildings and structures a framework of minimum standards and requirements to regulate and control their location, site, design, quality of materials, construction, use, occupancy, and maintenance. So, as it is indicated here in section 102, the to safeguard life, health, property, and public welfare, which is also one of the six fundamental canons of engineering ethics. So, next is section 103, scope and application. The provisions of this code shall apply to the design, location, seating, construction, alteration, repair, conversion, use, occupancy, maintenance, moving, demolition of, and addition to public and private buildings and structures, except traditional indigenous family dwellings, are defined herein. Building and or structures constructed before the approval of this code shall not be affected thereby, except when alterations, additions, conversions, or repairs are to be made therein, in which case this code shall apply only to portions to be altered, added, converted, or repaired. So, section 104, general building requirements. All buildings or structures as well as accessory facilities thereto shall conform in all respects to the principles of the safe construction and must be suited to the purpose for which they are designed. So, all buildings, whether it is public or private, shall conform on these principles of safe construction. So next is buildings or structures intended to be used for the manufacture and or production of any kind of article or product shall observe adequate environmental safeguards. So this section means that we must be environmentally conscious. And next is buildings or structures and all parts of thereof, as well as all facilities found therein, shall be maintained in safe, sanitary, and good working condition. So, next is section 105, site requirements. The land or site upon which will be constructed any building or structure or any ancillary or auxiliary facility thereto shall be sanitary, hygienic, or safe. In the case of sites or buildings intended for use as human habitation or above, the same shall be at a safe distance, as determined by competent authorities from streams or bodies of water and or sources of considered to be polluted from a volcano or volcanic site, and or any other building considered to be potential source of fire explosion. So buildings should be built build on a safe distance and to be distant from the dangers and to be sanitary and safe. So next is section 106, definitions. As used in this code, the words, terms, and phrases enumerated in Annex A hereof shall have the meaning or definition correspondingly provided therein. So, Chapter 2, Administration and Enforcement. Section 201, Responsibility for Administration and Enforcement. The administration and enforcement of the provisions of this code including the imposition of penalties for administration violations thereof is hereby vested in the Secretary of Public Works, Transportation, and Communications, hereinafter referred to as the Secretary. So, the responsibility should be on the Secretaries of Public Works and Transportation and Communication. So, there are two departments here, Department of Public Works and Highways and the Department of Transportation and Communication. So next is technical staff. The Secretary is hereby authorized to constitute and provide in his department a professional staff composed of highly qualified architects, engineers, and technicians who possess diversified and professional experience in the field of building design and construction. So next is section 203, general powers and functions of the Secretary under this code. For purposes of carrying out the provisions of this code, the Secretary shall exercise the following general provisions and functions: formulate policies, plans, standards, and guidelines on building design, construction, use, occupancy, and maintenance in accordance with this code. Issue and promulgate rules and regulations to implement the provisions of this code and ensure compliance with policies, plans, standards, and guidelines formulated under paragraph 1 of this section. Evaluate, review, approve, and or take final action or changes and or amendments to existing referral codes, as well as on the incorporation of other referral codes which are not yet expressly made part of this code. Prescribe and fix the amount of fees and other charges that a building official shall collect in connection with the performance of regulatory functions. So under and section 203, this shall be discussed furthermore on other sections. So professional and technical assistance. The Secretary, with the assistance of his technical staff, shall provide such professional, technical, scientific, and other services, including testing laboratories and facilities, as may be required to carry out the provisions of this code, provided that the Secretary may secure such services as he may deem necessary from other agencies of national government and may take arrangement for the compensation of the services. So the Secretary shall provide professional and other services or assistance, including testing laboratories to those facilities. So next is building officials. Except as otherwise provided herein, the building official shall be responsible for carrying out the provisions of this code in the field, as well as the enforcement of orders and decisions made pursuant thereto. So the building officials are the ones responsible. Due to the exigencies of the service or the needs of the service, the Secretary may designate incumbent public works district engineers, city engineers, and municipal engineers act as building officials in their respective areas of jurisdiction. So the Secretary can designate whether it is the district engineers or city engineers and municipal engineers. So the designation made by the Secretary under this section shall continue until regular positions of building official are provided or unless sooner terminated for causes provided by law or decree. So the designation of the secretary shall will will not take effect I shall not take effect until the building officials resigns or they are fired. So next is section 206, qualifications of building officials. No person shall be appointed as a building official unless he possesses the following qualifications. First is he must be a Filipino citizen and of a good moral character. Next is a duly registered architect or civil engineer. Third, a member of good standing of a duly accredited organization of his profession for not less than 2 years. So, a member of good standing organization is example is a PICE or Philippine Institute of Civil Engineers. And lastly is he has at least 5 years of diversified and professional experience in building design and construction. So next is section 207, duties of a building official. In his respective territorial jurisdiction, the building official shall be primarily responsible for the enforcement of the provisions of this code as well as the implementing rules and regulations issued therefore. He is the official charged with the duties of issuing building permits. So building officials are the ones responsible for issuing building permits. In the performance of these duties, a building official may enter any building or its premises at all reasonable times to inspect and determine compliance with the requirements of this code. So, building official can enter anytime at all premises to inspect and determine whether there's defect or buildings are secure or not and safe. When any building work is found to be contrary to the provision of this code, the building official may order the work stopped and prescribe the terms and or conditions when the work will be allowed to resume. So the building official shall see whether the work shall be continued or not. Likewise, the building official is authorized to order the discontinuance of the occupancy or use of any building or structure of portion thereof found to be occupied or used contrary to the provisions of this code. So discontinuance. Next is section 208, which is the fees. Every building official shall keep a permanent record and accurate account of all fees and other charges fixed and authorized by the secretary to be collected and received under this code. So building officials shall keep permanent records. Subject to existing budgetary, accounting, and auditing rules and regulations, the building official is hereby authorized to retain not more than 20% of his collection for the operating expenses of his office. So 20% shall be assigned to him and to his office. The remaining 80% shall be deposited with the provincial, city, or municipal treasurer and shall accrue to the general fund of the province, city, or municipality concerned. Section 209, exemption. Public buildings and traditional indigenous family dwellings shall be exempt from payment of building permit fees. So the only exception is public buildings and traditional indigenous family dwellings. As used in this code, the term additional indigenous family dwellings means a dwelling intended for the use and occupancy by the family by the owner only and constructed of native materials such as bamboo, nipa, logs, or lumber, the total cost of which does not exceed 15,000 pesos. So If it exceeds 15,000 pesos, then it shall not be exempted on the fees required by the code. So section 210 at section 210, use of income from fees. Any provision of law to the contrary notwithstanding, the Secretary is hereby authorized to prescribe the procedures for the use of all net income realized by the Office of the Building Official from the collection of fees and charges not exceeding 20% thereof in accordance with Section 208. So 20%. So the collection of the building officials, which is 20%, will be assigned to them, to their offices. Such income may be used to cover necessary operating expenses, including the purchase of equipment, supplies and materials, traveling expenses, obligation expenses, and sheriff's fees, and payment of other prior years' obligations not adequately funded, subject to existing budgetary and auditing rules and regulations. So next is section 211, implementing rules and regulations. In the implementation of the provisions of this code, the Secretary shall formulate necessary rules and regulations and adopt design and construction standards and criteria for buildings and other structures. Such standards, rules, and regulations shall take effect after their publication once a week for 3 consecutive weeks in a newspaper of general circulations. So if there has been additional to the rules and regulations, it will be publicated once a week for 3 consecutive weeks in a newspaper or any other publications. Next is section 212, administrative fines. For the violation of any of the provisions of this code or any of the rules and regulations issued thereunder, the Secretary is hereby empowered to prescribe and impose fines not exceeding 10,000 pesos. So the fine shall be 10,000 pesos. Penal provisions. It shall be unlawful for any person, firm, or corporation to erect, construct, enlarge, alter, repair, move, improve, remove, convert, demolish, equip, use, occupy, or maintain any building or structure or cause the same to be done contrary to in violation of any provision of this code. Any person, firm, or corporation who shall violate any of the provisions of this code and or commit any act hereby declared to be unlawful shall upon conviction be punished by a fine of not more than 20,000 pesos or by imprisonment of not more than 2 years or by both such fine and imprisonment, provided that in the case of a corporation, firm, partnership, or association, the penalty shall be imposed upon its officials responsible for such violation. So in a corporation form, the penalty shall be applied to the officials, and if he or she is an alien or a foreigner, then he shall be deported after payment of the fine. So next is section 214, dangerous and ruinous buildings or structures. Dangerous buildings are those which are herein declared as such or are structurally unsafe or not provided with safe egress, or which constitute a fire hazard. So dangerous buildings are defined as structurally unsafe and with fire hazard. Next is section 215, abatement of dangerous buildings, which also means that minimizing or decreasing the dangers of a building. When any building or structure is found or declared to be dangerous or ruinous, the building official shall order its repair, vacation, or demolition, depending upon the degree of danger to life, health, or safety. This is without prejudice to further action that may be taken under the provisions of Articles 482 and 694 to 707 of the Civil Code of the Philippines. Next is other remedies. The rights, actions, and remedies provided in this code shall be in addition to any and all other rights of action and remedies that may be available under existing laws. Next is Chapter 3, Permits and Inspection. Under Chapter 3, Section 301, Building Permits. No person, firm, or corporation, including any agency or instrumentality of the government, shall erect, construct, alter, repair, move, convert, or demolish any building or structure or cause the same to be done without first obtaining a building permit. Therefore, from the building official assigned in the place where the subject building is located or the building work is to be done. So, building permits shall be first obtained in order to build such structures, whether it is private or public. So next is Section 302, Application for Permits. In order to obtain a building permit, the applicant shall file an application, therefore in writing and on the prescribed form from the office of the building official. So, application for permit shall be in writing and in the prescribed form. Every application shall provide at least the following information. First is a description of the work to be covered by the permit applied for. Next is certified true copy of the TCT or the transfer certificate of the title of the land covering the lot which the proposed work is to be done. If the applicant is not the registered owner, in addition to the TCT or the transfer certificate of title, a copy of the contract of lease shall be submitted. So next is the use or occupancy for which the proposal work is intended. So what is it used for? So estimated cost of the proposed work. So to be submitted together with such application are at least 5 sets of corresponding plans and specifications prepared, signed, and sealed by a duly mechanical engineer in case of mechanical plans and by a registered electrical engineer in case of electrical plans, except in those cases exempted or not required by the building official under this code. So, when the applicants shall prepare at least 5 sets of the plans and specifications. So next is processing of building permits. The processing of building permits shall be under the overall administrative control and supervision of the building official and his technical staff of qualified professionals. So building permits are handled by building officials and his technical staffs only. In processing an application for a building permit, the building official shall see to it that the applicant satisfies and conforms with approved standard requirement on zonings and land use, lines and grades, structural design, sanitary and sewerage, environmental health, electrical and mechanical safety, as well as with the other rules and regulations promulgated in accordance with the provisions of this code. So if any of these is not satisfied or not or is not satisfied or not acquired, then the building permit shall not be approved. So next is section 304, issuance of building permits. So when satisfied that the work described in an application for building permit and the plans and specifications submitted therewith conform to the requirements of this code and other pertinent rules and regulations, the building official shall, within 15 days from payment of the required fees by the applicant, issue the building permit applied for. So the issuance of building permit shall be within 15 days from payment. So next is validity of building permits. Whenever the issuance of permit is based on approved plans and specifications which are subsequently found defective, the building official is not precluded from requiring permittee to effect the necessary corrections in said plans and specifications, or from preventing or ordering the stoppage of any of all building operations being carried or thereunder which are in violation of this code. A building permit issued under the provisions of this code shall expire and become null and void if the building permit therein is not commenced within a period of 1 year from the date of such permit. So the building permits will be expired 1 year from the date of which, when it is not commenced automatically, or if the building or work so authorized is suspended or abandoned at any time after it has been commenced for a period of 120 days. So next is non-issuance, suspension, or revocation of building permits. The building official may order or cause the non-issuance, suspension, or revocation of building permits on any of all the following reasons or grounds: errors found in the plans and specifications, incorrect or inaccurate data or information supplied, non-compliance with the provisions of this code or of any rules or regulations. So whenever there are whenever there are points check here, then it will not be the revocation of the building permits shall be applied. Notice of non-issuance, suspension, or revocation of building permits shall always be made in writing, stating the reason or grounds therefore. So it should be in writing form in a paper. So next is section 307, appeal. Within 15 days from the date of receipt of advice of the non-issuance, suspension, or revocation of permits, the applicant permittee may file an appeal with the secretary, who shall render his decision within 15 days from date of receipt or notice of appeal. So if an revocation or non-issuance of building permits is received, the applicants or the permittee shall can appeal within 15 days from the date of the receipt. Then, and the secretary shall be the one who will decide whether or not whether or not the applicant will be appealed or not, only to be reviewed by the office of the president or signed by the office of the president. So section 308, inspection and supervision of work. So the owner of the building who is issued or granted a building permit under this code shall engage the services of a duly licensed architect or civil engineer to undertake the full-time inspection and supervision of the construction. So the inspection shall be of architect or civil engineers only, and such architect or civil engineers may or may not be the same architect or civil engineer who is responsible for the design of the building. So it can be it is possible that they are the ones who designed the building, or they are the ones who did not design the building. So there shall be kept at the job site at all times a logbook wherein the actual progress of construction, including tests conducted, weather conditions, and other pertinent data or important data are to be recorded. So upon completion of the construction, the said licensed architect or civil engineer shall submit the logbook duly signed and sealed to the building official. He shall also prepare and submit a certificate of completion of the project stating that the construction of building conforms to the provision of this code, as well as with the approved plans and specifications. So logbooks and certificate of completion. So next is section 309, certificate of occupancy. No building or structure shall be used or occupied, and no change in the existing use of or occupancy classification of a building or structure or portion thereof shall be made until the building official has issued a certificate of occupancy, therefore as provided in this code. A certificate of occupancy shall be issued by the official building official within 30 days if after the final inspection and submittal of the certificate of completion referred to in the preceding section, it is found that the building or structure complies with the provision of this code. So the issuance of certificate of occupancy depends whether the certificate of completion has been given or not. The certificate of occupancy shall be posted or displayed in a conspicuous place on the premises and shall not be removed except upon under the building official. So after the issuance of certificate of occupancy, it shall be posted or displayed in a seen place or a open place that shall be clear, that is of clear view to the people and its occupiers. So the non-issuance, suspension, and revocation of certificates of occupancy and the procedure for appeal therefore shall be governed in so far as applicable by the provisions of section 306 or 7. If the certificates of occupancy is not given or suspended or revocated, then the applicants can appeal. The applicants can appeal stated at section 306 and 307, which is the appeals. Chapter 4. Next is chapter 4, types of construction. For purposes of this code, all buildings proposed for construction shall be classified or identified according to the following types. First is type 1. Type 1 buildings shall be wood construction. The structural elements may be of any materials permitted by this code. Next is type 2. Type 2 buildings shall be of wood construction with protective fire-resistant materials and 1 hour fire resistive throughout, except that permanent non-bearing partitions may use fire retardant treating wood within the framing assembly. So type 3 buildings. Next is type 3. Type 3 buildings shall be of masonry or wood construction. Structural elements may be of any materials permitted by this code, provided that the building shall be 1 hour fire resistive throughout. Exterior walls shall be of incombustible fire-resistive construction. Type 4 shall be made of steel, iron, concrete, or masonry construction. Walls, ceilings, and permanent partitions shall be of incombustible fire-resistive construction. So, next is type 5. Type 5 shall be fire-resistive. The structural elements shall be of steel, iron, concrete, or masonry construction. So, the only difference is in type the difference of type 4 and type 5 is that all materials of type 5 are fire resistives, while on type 4 there can only be an application of fire retardants. So there are 5 types of buildings. So next is changes and types. No change shall be made in the type of construction of any building which would place the building in a different subtype or type construction unless such building is made to comply with the requirements for such subtype or constructions, except when the changes is approved by the building official upon showing that the new or proposed building is less hazardous based on life and fire risk than the existing structure. So there can be changes when it is improved or upgraded. So next is section 403, requirements on type of construction. Subject to the provisions of this chapter, the Secretary shall prescribe standards for each type of construction and promulgate rules and regulations, therefore, relating to structural framework, exterior walls and openings, interior walls and enclosures, floors, exits, and stairs, construction and roofs. Next is chapter 5, which is the requirements for fire zones. Section 501, which is fire zones defined. Fire zones are areas within which only certain types of buildings are permitted to be constructed based on their use or occupancy, type of construction, and resistance to fire. So, Section 502, buildings located in more than one fire zone. A building or structure which is located partly in one fire zone or partly in another shall be considered to be in more highly restrictive fire zone when more than 1/3 of its total floor area is located in such zone. So you need to it should be more than 1/3 of its floor area to be recognized as a highly restrictive fire zone. So section 503 is move building. Any building or structure moved within or into any fire zone shall be made to comply with all the requirements for buildings in that fire zone. So there shall be revisions on the buildings when it is moved into a fire zone. So next is section 504, temporary buildings. Temporary buildings such as reviewing stands and other miscellaneous structures conforming to the requirements of this code, and sheds, canopies, and fences used for the protection of the public around and in conjunction with construction work may be erected in the fire zones by special permit from the building official for a limited period of time, and such buildings or structures shall be completely removed upon the expiration that the time limit stated in such permits. So next is section 505, center lines of the streets. For the purpose of this chapter, the center line of an adjoining street or alley may be considered an adjacent property line. Distances shall be measured at right angles to the street or alley. Next is restrictions on existing buildings. Existing buildings or structures in fire zones that do not comply with the requirements for a new building erected therein shall not hereinafter be enlarged, altered, remodeled, repaired, or moved except as follows. So, first is such building is entirely demolished. Next is such building is to be moved outside the limits of the more highly restrictive fire zones to a zone where the building meets the minimum standards. Changes, alterations, and repairs may be made provided that in any 12-month period, the value of the work does not exceed 20% of the value of the existing building, and provided that such changes do not add additional combustible material and do not, in the opinion of the building official, increase the fire hazard. So, additions thereto are separated from the existing buildings by firewalls are set forth in subsection 604B. Lastly, damage from fire or earthquake, typhoons, or any fortuitous event may be repaired using the same kind of material of which the building or structure was originally constructed, provided that the cost of such repair shall not exceed 20% of the replacement cost of the building or structure. And lastly is Section 507, Designation of Fire Zones. The Secretary shall promulgate specific restriction for each type of fire zone. Cities and municipalities shall be divided into such fire zones in accordance with local, physical, and spatial framework plans submitted by city or municipal and or development bodies. So that's all, guys. Thank you for listening, and if you have any questions, please write down or comment.